lot of people, a lot of people have been like, okay, why did you choose ICP? Why didn't you choose something like Solana? Solana is like the fastest blockchain. Or why didn't you choose Ethereum? Well, no one goes on Ethereum anyway these days. So why didn't you choose Solana? And yes, Solana is the fastest blockchain today. But here's a myth. Solana is the fastest single chain blockchain. It is not multi-chain like ICP. And this is where ICP has the technological edge. A lot of people say ICP's price tag from 700 to 5, but they're not willing to understand what ICP is building in the backend. Personally speaking, I would say ICP should have gone down the route of, listing as an IPO on stock exchange. It would have done like way better if it went that route. But okay, whatever happened. That's their personal concern. So on ICP is not a single blockchain. ICP is several mini blockchains called subnets. And how these subnets function is that they redistribute the load. On Solana, if you're executing a transaction, okay, all the nodes on the Solana blockchain, okay, these nodes are like highly sophisticated, highly advanced hardware, not your home PC system. They're like, systems with 128, 256 GB RAM. As a matter of fact, Mr. Demonical used to be a Solana validator back in the past, if you guys are already not aware of this. So, but there is a problem with Solana. Everything that happens on Solana blockchain, it needs to be updated across all the nodes. And that is how the flow moves. Unless until all the nodes are, all the nodes update their data status, the things can move forward. And that's why you have problems like congestion effects on Solana blockchain. If there is a meme coin that is being traded and it starts receiving a ton of traction and traffic, the entire network goes congested. I'll give you a real world example. Like, what am I actually talking about? Like, why ICP is far, far, far more superior compared to the likes of Solana or Ethereum. I'll give you an example. Let us say there is a highway. On this highway, there are like cars moving around, but the problem is this highway is kind of narrow. Like, there are vehicles going around, but more than often there are traffic jams. Like cars find it difficult to move along this highway. It gets like really busy. This highway is Ethereum. Now, the authorities decided we will expand the width of this highway. So the highway was broadened, and now the cars are able to move at like really high speeds. This is Solana. Like, Solana increased the transaction speed like several times over compared to Ethereum. Now, Ethereum, it could be faster, but they choose to be decentralized, and they also prioritize security of the transactions. That is why it needs rollups and side chains like Optimism and Avalanche to build on the transaction speed. But on Ethereum, the transaction speed is limited, maybe 15 to 30 transactions per second. On Solana, it goes all the way to 4,000 because the highway has been broadened. But let us say Trump has decided to be present at the oath ceremony. He's going to take the oath at the ceremony. And all of a sudden, this highway starts receiving overwhelming traffic. The entire highway goes congested. People are not able to do trades across other meme coins or even on Trump coin. They're not able to do any of that garbage. So this is the problem with Solana. If the traffic becomes overwhelming, the network goes congested. And this is where ICP has the advantage, because ICP is not one highway. It is a highway on top of a highway, on top of a highway, on top of a highway. ICP is a multi-chain blockchain. These highways that I'm talking about, they are called subnets. And they redistribute the workload. I can say, like, for the first 1,000, let us say I'm going to be establishing a decentralized exchange on ICP. And let us say for the first 1,000 transactions, the order book, the transaction execution, ordering, the prioritization of transactions, all of these will be handled by canister A on subnet A. And for the next 1,000 meme coins, their transactions, their order book, it will be handled by canister B on subnet B. The same goes for the next 1,000 meme coins. That will be delegated to the canister C on subnet C. And in essence, all the workload is being redistributed across different mini blockchains. So on one hand, you have Solana that has to deal with everything on one chain. On ICP, you are redistributing that workload on like several subnets. It has got like n number of subnets. So this is why, in practicality, ICP is said to be horizontally scalable, which means that it does not need to upgrade its hardware's technical capabilities. All it needs to do is just add another node, and that would be it. But you cannot do that on Solana. On Solana, if you have to accelerate the pace of your network, your hardware needs to get fast. That is not the limitation on ICP. They will add another subnet. They will redistribute more workload. And that's why, in principle, you can achieve like infinite transactions per second on the ICP blockchain. Like there is literally no comparison. I'm not trying to show ICP right now. I do not even have an ICP token. But what I'm trying to explain you is the tech that they have built. They are almost close to rivaling AWS. The only difference is AWS is centralized and ICP is completely decentralized. So this basically is the reason why we chose ICP to be the underlying technology. Now, a lot of people have stressed about this. Will Delta be building its own blockchain? And I think this is the right time to cover this up because I've already explained what ICP is capable of. Yes, it is a good thing to make own blockchains, and right now, it's such common information that a lot of people can make blockchains on their own accord. Like they do not even need to rely on external sources. But the problem is when you're building something for mass adoption, you cannot rely on level blockchains. You need technology that can scale itself on will. You need technologies like ICP, Ethereum. Most of the people right here are nostalgia merchants, but you guys are not able to figure out that at one point in time, if the transactions, if cryptocurrencies become like really popular, then in future, if the transaction workload increases, blockchains like Ethereum and Solana, they would not be able to compete against the likes of ICP. Now, you might be saying, then why not Ethereum works on multi-chain structures? What does this sound like? This basically sounds like you just built Burj Khalifa, and after you're done with the building, you're saying, between the 50th floor and the 100th floor, I think the design doesn't look right. We need to change this. How feasible does that sound to you? Like, it doesn't make any sense. You have to change the entire principle, how the nodes interact, how the dApps on Ethereum interact and, send messages to the Ethereum blockchain. Changing that infrastructure is incredibly, incredibly difficult and not something that you can purchase. ICP invested billions of dollars into developing the infrastructure they have. You either start with the foundation of a multi-chain blockchain or you do not start with it. But if you're going to revert midway, I don't know how many of you people are technical, but if you have coded in the past, like developed apps, you know it very well what it takes to change the code in between. Like, it's basically like reworking on the entire project from scratch. That's what it is. So Ethereum is considering, pivot to multi-chain structure, but, it will take crazy investment that I guess it will be able to figure out somehow how to get it. But it's not going to happen right out of nowhere. It's going to take a lot of time. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of surprised why Ethereum, doesn't consider shaking hands with ICP already, because he has openly admitted it. I share you the YouTube link. He has openly considered ICP as the biggest competitor. What I believe is ICP will be its biggest successor. Right now, a lot of people do not know about it, but I think it's basically in the ways ICP communicates information. It's too technical for the mainstream media and for people to digest. If I talk about decentralized, if I talk about the programmable money, which is Ethereum, people relate to it. Yeah, he's talking about something. If I talk about building the fastest blockchain, okay, that is understandable. That is Solana. If someone talks about peer-to-peer digital cash or digital currency, that is Bitcoin. People understand that. But when someone says decentralize the internet, replace the internet, all of a sudden people are like, what is he talking about? And I think this is a problem most people are facing while trying to understand the ICP. Like for an average user, if I start talking about canisters, subnets, or threshold signatures, they're not going to be able to process the information. But as you can see, the ways I've communicated the information today, you will never forget what threshold signatures are. I explained to you with the chef's example. I gave you an example, like the highway example, to demonstrate why ICP is superior compared to the likes of Solana or Ethereum. So I think this is a really good way to communicate if you want to communicate things on a technical note. You cannot, speak jargonish and expect people to immerse themselves into what you're trying to communicate. You see, a few days ago, ICP or Definity issued an unofficial apology statement. And that statement, one line clicked my head, and it said something like, we have already worked out the tech other blockchains are thinking about wrapping up in 2030. And immediately my mind went to subnets. ICP is a multi-chain blockchain. Ethereum is looking to go down that path. But the kind of pain they will have to endure to come up with an infrastructure even remotely similar to ICP. There's a reason ICP is considered to have the best scientists and managers who are working on this. There's a reason ICP is considered as a rival to Amazon's AWS. There are good reasons for that, and all you need to do is just find the right sources to grab your information. I strongly condemn deriving information from ChatGPT because if as an average user you try to derive information from ChatGPT, it would not even talk about ICP, and this is because ICP is not as mainstream as the projects like Solana or Ethereum. When you really focus on the things ICP is working on, you can go take a look at a white paper, like the Delta Games white paper exclusively talks about the threshold ECDSA signatures. It has been covered in great detail, even more detail than I've already talked about. So if you want to derive information, I would say it's far, far, far more better to derive information from multiple sources, try to tally things with one another, and then you come at a conclusion. If you go with ChatGPT, it's going to be massively inaccurate. The day I was referred to Delta, okay, he is not part of the call right now. He was supposed to join for 30 minutes. He is based in Norway. So the day he referred me to Delta, as an average user like yourselves, I reached out on ChatGPT and I searched, okay, someone has shared me an APK, Delta GIMP, and it reproduces. It's an absolute garbage project. It's an absolute scam. And I'm like, okay, I was reluctant, but I was still like, okay, let's give it a shot. And well, things have gone right. I never really expected to be talking about Delta like this one day. So this is what I'm trying to communicate here. Please do not rely ChatGPT like proactively for information. It's a good way to, draw parallels to derive information. Like you can say, I'm not able to understand something. You can tell ChatGPT, please communicate it in a way that I'll be able to understand. In that regard, ChatGPT is really good. And for those reasons, please free to use ChatGPT. But please do not use GPT to come up with conclusions, because it's